Okay, so the next video we'll be looking at will be about the adjusting the levels and also the exposure maybe in some kinds and all that kind of stuff. So the previous photo, it was showing you how to remove some dust, especially if it's onto your lens, and some distraction. You'll see in Photoshop will do even better job at that because you have more tools. But in this one over here, I just wanted to show you, you take a nice picture, you go someplace, and I'm going to press into the develop module D onto my keyboard. You go into to take a photo, and as you saw in the previous video, you see this photo before. It's like that's what you take from a plane. It's really cool to see like the clouds or like maybe the fog that's onto the ground, over the lake, and then you have this big blue sky, and then those trees. I'm pretty sure that this mountain must have some trees in there. And how do you get back? So the first part is just that if you go into your develop module, you can see that from the histogram, this is really dark. Okay, you can actually activate some of those guys, which is like you turn them on. It means that if it turns blue, that means in this case, because this is the dark side or the black side, I could say, you have also the white. So if you go over the black and it goes really blue like this, it means that the photo has no details in this part, so therefore it's going to be hard to get it back. If you would go to the white part and you would see some red spots, then it would be the same thing. So if I go in here and I just start to increase this really high, you're going to see like this red, it like means it's white. It's like not even going to put like even ink onto the photo almost. That's what it's going to be looking like. I'll double click on the exposure to bring it back to its normal. So the first part is just that you have these settings. So the levels that we call. You have first, which is the white balance it's called. If you shoot in RAW, you can have like more of these things available for you. If you shoot in JPEG, then it would be less. So if I go, let me see, this is DNG. And if I go, do I have any photos? This is a JPEG. Yes, this is a JPEG. We had the famous dust, like wow. So if I go to as shot, you can see only these two options. So let's go back to this over here. It takes a little while because that's a raw file. And then you have these ones you can actually just see. Oh, click onto auto. Just let's see what's going to do. It's kind of warmed it up a little bit and all. It's like not too bad. This guy I don't like, so I'm going to say Control Z just to go back. So in this case, I kind of like the white balance in this case from this photographer. You can actually, like over here, you have the exposure, you have the recovery. The exposure is the same thing as what you have control into your camera. Okay, so you can make it dark if you want to, by how many stops you want. You can go really dark, or you can make it really bright. How do you play with these sliders? Is I would say you always click on it, but you look at your photo and you keep on going back and forth until you kind of like, well, I like kind of that part of here. So just like a 0.087. Now, in recovery, let's say that you have like this big black spot, and if you would have red spot onto your screen, if you click onto this and you drag it all the way, then it might recover. Let's go back to, I didn't do too much. Okay, let's just activate these guys. So click onto that and you see, yeah, not too much. It's usually like for the white, that will work. This recovery you'll select into portrait. Don't use it too much because it'll make the skin go gray. So the fill light. So this is where you're going to see the darkest part of your photo start to have some brightness. So if I go into fill light, I start to increase this. As you can see, the foreground over here and the white is not being touched too much. Just the dark side or the black shadow side of the actual clouds. So if I go in here and it's like, okay, well, I can go all the way up to see what's going to look like. I'm not so sure. Okay, so maybe like this. That'll be good. Now, mind you that I know that there's other sliders that I can just re-get that kind of saturation back. So the other one is just that you have the black. So therefore, if you want to increase that and make it darker, so you're going back to where you were. So I'm not going to touch this. I'll leave it as it was. The brightness is that if you want to make it darker, that will make the effect on overall. So you can actually just see darker or brighter. I kind of like this one. Contrast, this is the one that I use a lot onto my photos, because if you shoot and draw, when you're bringing into your Lightroom, it looks like kind of flat, okay? But if you use a contrast, it will pop a lot. As you'll see in another video or another photo that I'm going to do in this case. So that's mainly what you're doing with these part of here, these two parts, is just that you have the white balance. It means that if you want to have like a real gray and all that, you can use these things if it's not really right. And then let's look at it. If you want to do like colder, you can make it more blue. If you want to warm it up a little bit, so just like on the sunrise or sunset, you can actually just go really where you want. So it's up to you what you like. I kind of like that part over here. So now, if you look, those covers basically all of these parts of the first, okay? And then I'm just going to go into the last part, which is like very overall saturation, we can call it. You have the clarity. So depending on like if you have to take a photo and it's not really sharp, you can actually just increase this. But you have to be careful that it doesn't bring, like, you can select just over the mountain over here. You'll see that if I go back, when I start to bump it up, you'll start to see halos, we call. So I don't like that. So I'm going to just leave it as it is, because I don't need to have some details on this far. The vibrance, I don't use it. I never use it. I don't know. I don't like the effects. You can play with it, try it. Saturation, though, you can actually just play with that. And then it's like, yeah, this is like way too much. So you can just decrease that. So then you can play with this. So therefore, this video is just to show you kind of like, I call it the levels, but it's just the main basic of the exposure and then the contrast, and also how is your photo is going to pop. So let's have a look at maybe another one like this one. And let's go really fast in this case. So in this case, the temperature seems to be right. I'm just going to increase a little bit more warm. The exposure, I think that's fairly good. I like the way it is. Leave it as that is. So let's go into the white. There's no, well, this histogram is really nice, first of all. So fill light maybe a little bit, because I'm going to bring the contrast way more. And yeah, it's kind of like, this is like, he's not the main subject. I'm looking at this foreground over here and the actual fog from the river and the trees. That's what I'm looking for. And let's go right to this clarity, maybe a little bit, not too much. Saturation, there we go. So make the actual green greener and the hay a little bit more. So that would be one of them. So you can play with these, and it's up to you. Yes, it takes a little time, but you after playing with them, you get better and better at it. So that will conclude for the part of this first part. The next video I'm going to show you is that we're going to go into more details about the saturation of your photos, especially when you look at some skies. You have some effects like in this one. We'll look into this. So hopefully that helps.